We will call the budget presentation portion of our meeting. It satisfies the requirement for us to have two budget proposals, a budget hearing before we actually take a vote on the budget tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Miller, to get us going with that.
Well, our plan was if we had guests here for Gary to go through again the budget presentation, but
It's available to watch on the web.
yes, it's recorded from his, from the previous hearing, so unless the board had any questions or anything they wanted to speak about.
Okay. Any board member have any questions of Mr. Kelly before we are in this budget hearing?
I don't have any questions of Mr. Kelly. I do have some things that I would like to bring up. One of the things is that Governor Kemp really helped, our certified personnel and our non-certified personnel. In his election promises, he gave teachers the promise to give them $5,000. Of that, he has come forth at this point for certified personnel with $3,000 of the $5,000. As a result of the pandemic, there was additional funding that came down, and one was at the beginning of the school year, and it was $1,000 for certified personnel, and then at the end of the school year, the $1,000 went to actually at the school level personnel, and then at central office. So it was for both certified and non-certified personnel, and that was $1,000. I believe that Governor Kemp's plans are to give certified personnel the additional $2,000 that was promised during the election. And so saying that, for everything that took place in our community and for all the work that was done in our school system, the certified personnel will receive $7,000 if everything goes through. Probably my biggest concern is that as a school system, we need to think about everybody. We need to think about everybody that actually contributed to the success of last year, and actually from January 2019 until right now, because it took so much effort on the part of the school bus drivers and maintenance and the school custodians and food service and all the people that work in the offices down at the schools and the paraprofessionals. I mean, it took such an incredible effort to get the schools ready for the students to come back. Additionally, the teachers put in a tremendous amount of time because, most of our teachers had not ever taught virtually. They had taught in person. And so we asked a group of teachers to teach totally virtually, and we had to do the training, and they kept the best attitudes. I mean, it was incredible how they just seized that moment, and they stepped up to the plate and they taught those kids. And then there was something called the hybrid model, which was both in person and virtual, and our teachers did that. And then there was a group that just did the in person, and our teachers did that. And they came face to face with everything that was associated with the pandemic. And they came to school and they worked as hard as anybody. And I want this budget to reflect that. I want this budget to reflect that we appreciated everybody in the school system. and all of their efforts in everything that took place, you know, in the last year and a half. I mean, it was incredible, and it showed so much dedication to what they were doing. And I just kind of personally feel like, you know, this budget might lack in providing, you know, a salary increase for the non-certified and for the teachers. And I would like to see that be included in the budget, in some form, so that when we start the school year, everybody in the system will know they were valued and they are appreciated.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Any other comments? I agree with what Ms. Ford has said in the desire for everyone to feel appreciated and see what we can do to help non-certified. And I propose to this group, if we were to go ahead and pass the budget tonight, as it exists, I think there are these are extraordinary times with funding from the federal government with CARES Act and other things that we have leeway within the budget that we have not had in the past. And maybe we could form a committee of the board to help Mr. Kelly and Dr. Miller look at all of our certified staff positions and see what we can do, not only in the sense of making sure everybody feels valued, that's paramount to go ongoing with the organization, but we have a difficulty keeping certain people in certified, non-certified staff positions. So perhaps there are some extraordinary measures that we might need to take in some of those positions. So could we consider setting a deadline of end of July for that committee's work to come together, and with that flexibility we have in the budget currently?
Take me out of it. I've got to close out a year. Put Kevin.
Well, is there somebody in your stead that could
Kevin
do
could
that?
do it.
Kevin, okay.
Hey,
Perhaps do
you're welcome.
that work. Boom, boom, did you hear that bus go by, Kevin?
Yeah, right underneath us.
Would that, you know, be a compromise to make that work? I mean, where are we from a timeline standpoint is when we have to have our budget in?
We have to have a budget approved by June 30th or a spending resolution for the month of July.
Okay,
So, but I would say we would pass the budget, because right now the budget is based on the current salary guide. So we would have to amend the salary guide and then do a budget amendment, because the salary guide had changed. I mean,
Okay.
so my thing would be to approve the budget as is, then we would amend a salary guide, and then we would amend the budget
okay,
based on the salary guide, if we're changing the salary guide.
okay.
Okay, Gary, say that again, so we could approve the budget.
Approve the budget.
Not approve the salary.
No, the salary guide's already been approved.
Okay.
So what we would do is, we would make modifications to the current, amend the salary guide,
Okay,
and change the salary schedules for the non-certified if we came, you know, the committee said that when this needs to be changed. So we would change the pages that need to be changed. That would have an effect on the budget because people's salaries change. So we amend the budget to reflect the new salaries. So, and you can do a budget amendment anytime during the year.
I think it's work that needs to be done. I think, I don't know that it needs to be in a cross-the-board thing like the governor's done. I think we could take a hard look at our, you know, positions we have and make some, there may in fact be some across the board, but other precision type, you know, actions that would help us stop the bleeding of personnel that we see on our consent agenda. If we can.
They can make more money flipping burgers, and they're gonna do it. I mean,
Sure. And there are other issues besides just, obviously, the noble thought of wanting people to make as much money as they can. It is costly for us to hire people, train them, and then go somewhere else. I mean, that is unbelievably costly. So, we can't take that action in this budget hearing, but I think that's something we could do in the regular meeting. Is there anybody who volunteers to be a part of this committee from the board?
I think Ms. Donna, and I'll work with you. I'll help with you.
All right, so can we amend the agenda to take an action on that tonight? Okay, all right. Any other questions about the budget for this budget hearing before we go into our meeting at 5:30?
So Gary,
Yes, ma'am.
one more time.
Okay.
So if we are a committee of two and we're looking at these, we can make changes in that salary schedule, is what you're saying?
The salary scale. There's like page 17, I don't know what page, 14 through 20, every non-certified position has a scale, and it's like an hourly rate based on, theoretically, it should be years of experience, but it is not years of experience because we implemented this, everybody made the same thing years ago. So, everybody at a certain step should be about the same years. I mean, so, anyway, back to your question.
Okay, the question is if we look at the salary scale, now, I'm not thinking just about, yes, well, let me rephrase that. I am thinking about non-certified
Right.
in all those different departments. But I'm also thinking about the teachers because of their commitment and the things that they did last year that made schools successful.
Right.
So I'm not
But I'm gonna
just-
tell you, that when you start talking about teachers, to do anything significant for a teacher, you're talking big time money from a local standpoint. Usually when the teachers get a raise, we need the state to help participate in that raise. Cause it's big money, 3% raise for a teacher times 400 something teachers. I mean, you're talking millions of dollars. So if you wanna give them another $10 a month, I mean, local supplements are hard to fund. And that's why they're pretty much a small portion,
But that's what we did
But
with
what-
the administrators. We gave them an additional supplement, additional money.
assistant principals and principals, yes.
We gave them money in their supplement, is that
Mhm.
correct?
In their position
Administrative
supplement.
In their administrative supplement. And so teachers would get a raise in their supplement.
If you wanted to change the local supplement scale, yes. But now, it has been discussed about a CARES Act bonus again next year. And that could be any amount for any group of people that y'all wanted to do. I would recommend that over an adjustment that we have to keep funding year in, year out forever. It keeps going. Because you're tied at personnel, which is 80% of the budget, then it's gonna be an ongoing expense.
85% of the budget is personnel. So we have to be very careful. It's not that we don't wanna bless everyone, we do, but we've gotta find the best way to do that, that not only takes care of them, but is sustainable for future, people in our positions as boards or superintendent or finance director. So, I think that would be very important. Many of these things, Ms. Ford, we've discussed already, and I'm not saying we're not willing to do that again, but we've got to think not only for now, but down the road. And I agree exactly what you said is so true. Our teachers were amazing. Our non-certified staff, they all did great things this year. And that is where many systems have looked at the CARES money to provide a supplement in addition to the one that the governor provided. And that was something that we were considering with the CARES, with the ARP funds, the American Rescue Plan.
You mean a bonus, not a recurring supplement?
Not a, yes, it would be a one-time, and it'd be a retention supplement, and when the name says retention supplement, we don't have to pay benefits on it, because whatever increase you make, that brings another increase in benefits. We pay $11,000 per non-certified employee just in insurance. And so we have to really think through, I think your idea is a good idea, but we've got to be very strategic about what we're committing, not only to now, but in the future. And, you know, if we get too far out there, then we would have to have a millage rate increase to sustain it.
Mhm.
But we do have money that we could fund something, and especially, you know, what I'm concerned about are the non-certified
Yes,
personnel.
yes,
that-
absolutely.
That we cannot keep because they can go elsewhere and make more money and probably be in air conditioning.
Right,
So, you know.
Ms. Ford, I read earlier this year, that effectively the minimum wage in America is gonna be $15 an hour, not by legislation, not by a government act, but to get employees, because.
The market's gonna drive it.
Yes, sir, and, I don't know if y'all noticed, going over to Savannah, over there and back, every sign I saw, help wanted, apply now. And it was every kind of business, and the discussions we had with the contractors that we talked to in Savannah, they were really looking for help. So, while we had that same struggle, and we have for years, in particular for certain positions, but for all the non-certified. So I think that would be an important part of the committee. Frank mentioned maybe being strategic, maybe not a one thing for all, or maybe it is one for all, but we might want to do a little more for this group, just like we've tried over the last few years to do things to incentivize our bus drivers. There's a very nice attendance bonus. You know, I feel like addressing the bus parking lot, the purpose of that to save money, because we've had some issues that have been costly to us because of not having a paid bus parking lot, but also to make conditions as nice as possible for our employees who drive buses. But we want to do that for all the employees. You talked about the non-certified, and you were exactly right, Ms. Ford. I don't know if people realize that our non-certified employees, when the governor ordered shelter in place, our bus drivers and food service workers and custodians, they were making schools clean, even though nobody was here. They were getting us ready for the next year. Our food service team, they were preparing meals to deliver to children. The bus drivers were helping, even though we were in a shelter in place. We did approve a stipend for the people who worked during that time, to thank them, we appreciate what you did. It was only for non-certified. Our staff in this office who had to get payroll out, that didn't stop. We had to keep paying people through those months that the schools were shut down. So we have some savings that we're going to talk about a little bit later in my reports, and that might be one source to look at. Gary mentioned the CARES money that we have. We've expended some of it, but not all of it, and so that might be another source to look at. The only thing with CARES is that's a finite, that we have it now, but we can't bank on that down the road. But that's where a one-time supplement for all employees, like we did in the spring, that's something we would like to revisit. And perhaps this committee can give us some guidance on that as we think through that.
And when y'all talk an incentive to hire a bus driver, hiring incentive. Now, I don't know how that works with you. I thought of this, if we gave $5,000 for new bus drivers to come to Lee County and they work the whole year, they get $5,000. Now, what do you do for that might help. I'm not saying that that's the amount, but I'm just saying that might help.
We're not committing to anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that might help you get 10 bus drivers like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, Ms. Ford, when we raised the sub pay to $100 a day, we had a lot more people willing to sub. Now, we never bridged the gap of the shortage we had, but we were struggling very much with that in the beginning of the year. But when the board took the action of raising sub pay to $100 a day, that was an incentive.
Well, it was, and not only an incentive, but it kind of bridged what they felt like, you know, okay, I'm gonna go back in that school, I don't know, you know, who could possibly have contracted, you know, the coronavirus, but for that, I'm willing to do it. And so, you know, and before they went, you know, it's not worth me doing that. And so giving them that extra money, you know, helped bridge, you know, what I felt like, I'm not gonna go to, I'm gonna go and help sub in those classrooms. And we had to, because the teachers were getting exposed, you know, they were sent home to be quarantined. I mean, we did need the subs, and the subs were another group that stepped up to the plate and really helped us.
In the salary guide, those became permanent. What we changed to because of coronavirus, we kept those sub rates the same.
Good. That's good.
Yeah. And I'd like, you mentioned about the bus driver incentive. I'd like Kevin to address the bus driver incentive, what we're doing with respect to absences and COVID on that. Kevin, what
You know what we talked about today?
yeah.
Yes.
So there's two different ways that bus drivers were absent because of COVID. One obviously was they were sick, and the other one was they were sent home because of quarantine, because they were quarantined because somebody else got sick, blah, blah, blah. So with the incentive, what we discussed today with the attendance incentive, if you get sick, it's kind of like getting the flu. I mean, if you get sick, you get sick. That's something, it happens. I mean, that's, you're not at work because you're sick. But if you're quarantined, that's something we did to you. I mean, now it's our policies, laws, state, CDC, whatever, but it's still, so you were healthy and otherwise able to work, but we sent you home because of our quarantine policy, because of the CDC policies that we're following, whatever. So what we talked about was, for that incentive, if your absence was because of a quarantine, we're not gonna count that against you. That was our action upon, we did that to you. If you were sick, however, well, I mean, that's an absence, because just like if you had a sinus infection, flu, whatever, I mean, if you're sick, you're sick. You're not able to be there.
Okay.
And what you said, Gary, I mean, I understand that, there might be money further out. There might be another, maybe it's called a drop or whatever you want to call it, but that might be another, group of money that comes down that we're able to pay, but you can't count on it.
No.
So, you can promise me that, as a worker, but you can't deliver it unless the state gives that money to you. And kind of what my thought is, we need to increase the pay of those individuals so that they don't go somewhere else and make $10 an hour, so that, so the school system is going to pay them,
Right.
If I could ask a question, how is it Doherty County can pay their teachers more than we can pay ours? Aren't they?
They got more
funded
tax
by the
base, a larger tax base.
Tax base, larger federal dollars.
P&G, Georgia Pacific, Miller Brewing, I mean, they have got such a large tax base that they can build a school and pay for it.
They're federal.
They also have some different federal funding through
Oh, yeah.
federal programs that we don't qualify for.
We don't have.
So
Have
there
we
are-
made sure that we don't qualify for those?
Yeah.
Because I know things have changed.
Well, our free and reduced rate is increasing. Most of those grants are based on free and reduced. And, where are we at on free and reduced? 50?
Well, we're about 44%, but we are, this past year was the first time we were district-wide Title I. Years before that, we were target assisted, which was only impacting grades 6 through 12. And this year, we were able to hire some additional personnel through the title funding to help in our K-5 schools, and it was very, very well received by our educators in those schools. And so Dr. Stenbridge has done a great job helping us, make more impact. And I've heard that we're gonna get even more federal funding through the title programs in the coming year, that President Biden has proposed that. We have no idea. The federal programs conference is next week, I think. Isn't it next week?
It is.
Yes, so this is an annual conference that several of our people attend and participate in, so hopefully that'll give us a little more insight. I'm not sure if that requires legislative action through Congress, but he's proposed a pretty good increase in that going forward. But also that money is also, you can't just spend it. You got guidelines which
Sure.
you need to meet to use it. But Doherty has a bigger tax base. In Lee County, our taxes come in here, but our needs are here. And the county commission did a study with the UGA economists about 2 or 3 years ago, sales tax ratio study, and our tax revenue's here, but our expenditures are here, and that's one reason the board in the years past has had to go up on the millage rate. But even so, we have one of the lowest per pupil expenditures in the state. I mean, like, we're in the top 6 or 7 of the 180 school systems. We spend less per student compared to Beaufort City Schools, which is the highest paid teachers in the state. And they're roughly, they get about $4 million and more in state funding than we do, but they have half our students. But they also have pretty good local revenue that we don't enjoy because of if school systems on an interstate or with a lot of economic development really benefit. And the state tries to adjust for that through equalization, and it's kind of a complicated idea, but it really is trying to help small communities like where I grew up in Calhoun County. Very small town, no industry, not that many students. They're trying to balance the books. That's a great question.
All right, any other questions?
I have one more. Gary, why do we have a discrepancy in the revenues and our expenditures? Why don't we make that the same number?
Because I brought it all, like every employee takes health insurance, we have to pay, if everybody took health insurance, we pay $11,340. I don't budget for the ones, I budget that everybody takes it. I build in a money in the budget. I know exactly where every one of my things, because our fund balance next year can be 15%. Our ending fund balance can be 15% of next year's budgeted expenditures. It gives me a gap of fund balance. It's a buffer.
But it looks like,
We're gonna spend more than we,
bingo,
yeah.
it does.
But if you look down at the fund balance as of the end of, the projected fund balance for July 1, 2021, which is a couple weeks, that fund balance, the total fund balance is $16 million. So the shortfall that you see in that budget for the year of $7.8 million is covered by that buffer that Gary's talking about, that $16 million fund balance that we have basically in the bank before the budget's even started.
Is your balance includes kind of like that net equity?
Correct.
The regular balance sheet is the balancer.
So it's not like we're projecting to spend more than we have. We have capital today, seed capital today, if you will, that makes up that difference. And because of the limitations you have in next year's buffer that we can have for whatever emergency may arise, that's in Gary's calculation.
I mean, I've never tried to hide it. I mean, I've always told, Dr.
Yeah.
Clay's always asking, and I mean, it's in there. I can show you where every bit of it is.
It's almost 5, it is 5:30,
It is
a little
5:30.
after, so. But this year's a good example. When the pandemic came, we spent several $100,000 preparing to open school that we've never spent before, but we had enough of a reserve and fund balance to manage that cost. Now, CARES had not come yet, that helped offset that when it was available, but that helps us in these unexpected situations.
Yeah, we did not know that that money was coming.
Right.